as that, you're welcome here. Make yourself at home.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this live webinar all about moving to New Zealand. My name's Paul Goddard, and I'm a licensed immigration advisor with Working In. I've been helping people move, I don't know, for about 15 years now. I'm also joined by my colleague, Nazim. Nazim, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all and to be here today. I'm also a licensed immigration advisor. I've been with Working In, just had my 12-year anniversary. Also helped thousands of people, and looking forward to having a chat to you all today.
Excellent. And I'm also joined by another one of our colleagues, Monique, who's also over there in New Zealand. Monique, how are you? Do you want to say hello to everyone?
I'm very well, thanks, Paul. Yes, so my name's Monique. I'm born here in New Zealand to Dutch migrants. At a very young age, I moved back to the Netherlands, but I couldn't stay away from New Zealand, so I'm back again, and I've been living here now for close to 30 years, and I now call Auckland my home. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Well, what we're going to do today, this evening, today, tonight, this afternoon, wherever you are in the world, I don't know where you are in the world, you're all in the chat room, so say hello, type questions to us. We've got people in the chat room who can answer questions for you. I can also see the questions that are coming up and address any of those things. We want this to be as interactive as possible. But what we really want to talk about during this webinar is, as you can see on the screen there, why using licensed advisors like us is important, not only because of the fact that we're licensed, but because of what we do. And you'll see it's far more than just filling out forms, which is a common misconception that you use an immigration advisor to fill out forms for you. That's a part of the process, an important part, but it's actually quite a small part of the process when you consider it with everything else. We're going to talk about what's happening in New Zealand, the job market. We're going to touch on the 4 steps that we can take you through to make a move to New Zealand, how we can support you through all this whole process, and also very importantly, who we can assist and can't assist. We can't help everybody. We don't offer to help everybody. We can only help people where we can add benefit. Are we a good fit for you? Are you a good fit for us? But hopefully you're on this webinar because you're looking for help and support, because that's what we're here for. And if you are somebody who we can help and support, then of course we're more than happy to do that for you. So there's a little slide here of our team over in New Zealand. We've got a lot of people, haven't we, over in New Zealand, Nazim?
Yeah, we're getting large. I think the picture you're going to pop up, this is just the visa team. So this is all of us licensed advisors, and these are only those of us based in Auckland. So obviously we've got licensed advisors like Paul over in the UK. We've got team members in South Africa. We've got team members in India. We've got team members in Manila. So we're actually quite large. We've got a lot of experience. And so as Paul mentioned earlier, those of us that are licensed immigration advisors are registered and licensed with the New Zealand Immigration Advisors Authority. So I guess it's important to explain what this is and why it's important. I do know that us explaining this has made some difference, because I did actually get an email last night from a gentleman saying, I've watched one of your webinars before, and I just want to know, can you help me figure out who isn't licensed? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I guess the first thing to know is that under New Zealand law, you have to be licensed in order to provide immigration advice, whether you're in New Zealand or anywhere in the world, because the government here identifies that it's really important that you're getting the right help. Now, immigration advisors, we're all bound by a code of conduct. So that means that we need to behave in a certain way. We need to keep our skills at a certain level. And, we have to do mandatory CPD every year, as well as then renew our license annually. So part of what we do at Working In is obviously we do all of that. And we also operate with something called a client fund. So a client fund is effectively like a trust account without it being a trust account. So any funds that you pay for work go into this account, and they're kept there until work is done, and only then is it released and does it become money that we've earned. So Any business that doesn't operate using a client fund, you probably want to be a little bit wary of. Because they're just taking your money and going, thanks, see you later. So that's one thing to be looking for. Obviously, checking that you're working with a licensed immigration advisor, and you can find, details of who's licensed on the IA website. All of the immigration advisors at Working In are licensed. Yesterday, one of our team members got her full license. So she's obviously been in the industry a long time, and we've encouraged her over the years, and now she's at that point. And we've obviously got a whole lot of experience because there are so many of us. So as Paul said, he's been helping people for 15. I've been helping for 12. We've got lots of really senior team members here at Working In.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is so important, and especially things like the client fund and stuff like that, Nazim, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of money involved in making a move to New Zealand. And I think it's very, we should be very clear about that with people. I don't know where you're at with your research if you're watching this or anything, but when you look into the costs of moving to New Zealand, the fees you pay the New Zealand government, there's medicals, there's police checks, there's the fees that you pay us to do what we do, there's the cost of getting to New Zealand. You're changing your whole life, and it's all about minimizing risks and protecting things. And the client fund is a great example of one of the ways that happens. But whilst we've got you on here, Nazim, the current job market in New Zealand, we were just chatting about this before we went live, and you're there, and we do work with a lot of employers over in New Zealand. So just give us a bit of an overview of what's happening over there at the moment.
Sure. So obviously, it's quite. We knew we had a skills shortage prior to COVID. Then we had the borders closed, which exacerbated that skills shortage. And we've only really had the borders open for not that long a period of time. So you've got like 2-3 years worth of demand for skills that needs to be filled. So a lot of the team that are based here in Auckland, we work directly with employers with regards to their immigration needs to, because they're looking for skilled people. And so you've got all these employers who are going through the process of getting ready or have become ready in order to be able to hire migrant or offshore skills. So I'll just jump to the second point on the screen, which is the employer accreditation. So last year, the government introduced this policy that they had been talking about for a while, saying that all employers that want to hire skills need to be accredited. So we've moved to a new process where employers need to be accredited once they've got that accreditation, and they can prove that they're a good employer and they should have access to your skills. That's their first box ticked. And then they can get their accreditation annually, or it's valid for 2 years, depending on the type of accreditation. So at the moment, the government said, look, we need to get everyone accredited to encourage them. We're going to give employers 2 years. So that's, great news. Just please get on with it, because we want to help you help yourselves. The next thing is the job check. So the job check is, so you do accreditation just once, but the job check is role specific. So if there's a company that says we need, 40 diesel mechanics to work, at our new factory that we're setting up to maintain all the machinery that's just arrived, then they would lodge a job check. So as part of this, they're presenting to the government to say, these are the skills we need, this is where we need them, and this is what we're paying them, and this is why we need as many as we do. Once that's approved, the employer gets something called tokens. Those tokens are then individually assigned to people like you, who then apply for the visa. So it sounds like there's lots of steps. It's basically the same process that they had prior under the essential skills. What they've done is they've just chopped it up a bit. Yeah. So each person just does their bit, as opposed to everyone trying to figure out what everyone else is doing at the same time. So it's good in that respect, but it does mean that sometimes you've got to wait for the last step to be completed before you can start yours. And that's part of why planning and understanding what your pathway looks like is important. So looking at the straight to residence and the work to residence green list occupations, the New Zealand government has identified key skills that are in super high demand in New Zealand. So you've got engineers, healthcare professionals, you've got trades in there, you've got early childhood teachers and secondary school teachers, you've got a huge variety of roles, and the government says these are roles that are really, really important, And so we need to help employers get access to these skills sooner. And so the job check process for those skills isn't, has 2 or 3 less requirements. And so that means it's faster for you to be able to apply. So you can get to New Zealand sooner and you can start working. The other thing is that in some of those roles, they're so desperate to have you here in New Zealand that they're like, right, we're going to get you, because you're a tier 1 occupation, we're going to allow you to go straight to residence because we want you to come and we want you to stay and we don't want you to have to worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my takeaway from this, and obviously, as you know, helping people through every step of the process, which we'll talk about shortly, is accreditation is in place. It's not changing, it's not going away. It's part of the system now. And there are some positives, as you've said, the employer's being pre-checked, and that means you've got a good employer with a good job offer and it's already gone through that process. The downside that we get all the time from people who are looking to move to New Zealand, even people that we're helping, is there is no list of these employers. So it's not as simple as, right, I'm just going to send my CV to all of these employers. And also, one of the other challenges that people face, I guess, when they apply for jobs from offshore in New Zealand is because they don't know if the employer is accredited or not, there's a good chance that they're actually applying to an employer who's not accredited, because not every employer in New Zealand is accredited yet. It's a new process. And one of the other areas, and you can touch on this, Nazim, one of the other areas where we can help is we can actually help employers get accredited. So if one of our clients who we're helping is talking to an employer who's not accredited and that employer wants to hire them, we can literally help that employer get the accreditation needed so that they can hire them, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's a few recent examples of that where, one of our clients has said, I'm talking to this company or, this employer, and they're asking questions and I don't know how to answer them. So they've just connected them to us. And so as licensed immigration advisors, we can then talk them through and sort it all out so you don't have to worry. So that's where our expertise comes into play. That's what we do. So we can help ensure that,
Absolutely.
all of those other steps are sorted and you can just worry about planning your
My key
flight.
tip, yeah, my key tip for anybody who's on here watching this is if you're currently or have been firing off your CV to employers in New Zealand and you're getting no response at all, or you're getting, hey, sorry, you're overseas, we can't help you, and and that's all you're doing is applying for jobs you see online and sending your CV, you need to stop doing it and you need to do something else. Because if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. We can't guarantee anybody a job offer, only the employer can do that. But what we can do is put you in the best position to interact with those employers and try and remove the barriers that stop the employers engaging with you. Employers need to know that if they offer you a job, everything's going to run quickly and smoothly. And the reality is, if you just send a CV on its own, it doesn't tell them that. It tells them you can do the job. It doesn't show them if, when, and how you're going to get to New Zealand if they offer you a job. Just because they're accredited, and this is another key point, I think, Nazim, just because they're accredited does not mean that they have to understand how visas work or how the visa process works, or that they're going to assist you with the visas. And as you said, if they're not licensed, they can't anyway. But I think some people make an assumption that because an employer is accredited and has been pre-approved through accreditation, that's it. I've just got to fill out a form and everything's going to be okay. And that's not the case, is it, Nazim?
No, it's not. And we're seeing quite a lot of examples and situations recently where someone in the company had done the accreditation, they've moved on. I mean, it's a hot market here. HR are being snapped up and moved around. And then you've got a company that's under-resourced and just super busy, and they go, here's your job offer. They don't actually have time to talk to you about what the rest of that entails. Basically, please sort it out yourself. And so that's why it becomes your responsibility to make sure that you've got the access to the knowledge and the support to be able to do what you need to do. So the employer's basically done what they've done and what they needed to. It's on you now.
Yeah, it's on you. Go away and get out. And they're not really, a lot of the time they're not actually concerned about your family or anything else, because they want you as the person that they're hiring. And it's, what about my family? What about my kids? How does that fit in? How do the visas apply to them? There's so many things that people need to know, and that's where licensed advisors and working in come in. So thanks for that, Nazim. And I think we've touched on, some key areas there where we can help people. But Monique, what about this really important question about who we can and can't help? You and I especially talk to a lot of people at the start of this
Yeah.
process, and there's people that very clearly we just cannot move forward with. I mean, what would you, if I ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot. Sorry, Monique.
Yeah, that's all right.
But if I was to ask you to describe the person that we can't help, what would that look like? What's some key sort of factors in that
Yeah.
person that we
Who,
can't help?
so you're starting from the bottom, who we can't help. Well, we can't help anyone, first of all, who doesn't speak our language. You need to be able to speak and understand the English language. Um, you also need have done some research, have a plan in place and stick to your plan. And we are here to give you the clarity that you're going to need to make that really important decision in your life. But if you haven't already got, you don't know anything about New Zealand, you haven't got skills that are in demand in New Zealand, you don't speak our language, it's going to be really difficult for you to move here, or maybe even impossible. So that's first of all, that those are the main people we can't help. So
Mm.
our ideal clients is actually the opposite, isn't it, Paul? So if you do speak the English language, if you've got skills that are in demand, now you don't necessarily have to be on the green list of occupations that Nassim was talking about, the tier 1 or the tier 2. If you've still got skills that are in demand, skills that are on our long-term skills shortage list, you've done your research. I speak to lots of people that have been to New Zealand before when they were younger. They've done the working holiday visa. They've traveled around our country for a year. They're now back in the UK or Singapore or USA or wherever you are in the world. And you think back to those times, you think, you know what, I really want to move back to New Zealand. So you already know our country. You know what it's like. You know what the lifestyle is like in New Zealand. Those are the people that we love talking to, because you know what you've got that sense of adventure already. You know our country, and if you've got the skills to match and the qualifications to match those skills, then hey, we're here to talk to you. But as I said, and this is something I got from you, Paul, that you need a plan. People without a plan, it's you need to stick to that plan. It's really, really important.
And you need to actually know how to get the plan, which is
Yeah,
obviously one of the first things that we do, and we'll talk to people about how we can actually help you have a plan, because lots of people watching this will be going, well, I haven't got a plan because I haven't got enough information yet to make a plan,
yeah,
and it's all about gathering the information and answers you need so that you can actually move forward. I say this quite a lot to people I talk to. You need all the answers to all your questions, and you need a clear way forward that's easy to follow, because
absolutely.
until you've got those two
Yeah,
things, you can't move forward.
yeah,
And it's the same for the employer as well. I think one of the key thing that you touched on there as well, Monique, was and we've touched on earlier as well, was one of the things around people who can't move is, how important would you say finances are in terms
oh
of
yeah,
an understanding of
yeah.
what it actually costs?
Absolutely. Yeah, I won't sugarcoat it. It's
No.
not cheap. Immigration is not cheap. So you need to be aware, and we will make you aware. That's part of the service that we do offer. We will outline the costs of immigration. It's not just your medical and your police clearance. There's fees to the New Zealand government for your visa, and then if you want our support or support from anyone
Excellent.
else,
Yeah.
there will be fees there as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Paul will
It's got
touch
to
on that.
you've got to understand it, and look, there's different options for different people. It depends on what your circumstances are,
Absolutely.
and there's ways of doing these things, but understanding what costs are involved is very important, because that's going to help you formulate your plan. Can you move now? Do you have to save a bit more? Can you move later? That it's really, really important, and that's what we look for when we talk to people. So
Yep.
Anyone watching this webinar, when you reach out to us and you give us your basic information, that's why we kind of go through this screening process. Have you got the right skills? Do you meet immigration criteria? Have you got, the funds to be able to make you move? Have you done that? Can we actually help you? That's what we're doing through all this process before anyone even commits to actually making the move, get all of this done. What we're talking about here isn't just saying to somebody, hey, you're eligible for a visa, congratulations. We could tell most people on this call tonight that they're probably eligible for some sort of visa. It doesn't help you move. What we're talking about in what we're doing here is actually giving you a plan so that you can move forward. So thanks for that, Monique. And on that note, you know, the main ways, or that overview of how we help people is by taking them through 4 stages. And I always say this very well, and it's good. My colleague Islands literally put it together exactly how I say it. Get ready, get a job, get a visa, get on a plane. It sounds really simple, but it has to go in that order. And because if it doesn't work. And the key to this process, that first one, getting ready for the move, most people don't do it. They think they've done it. They think that because they've been to New Zealand, they've done some research, or they've read the New Zealand Immigration Service website, or they've watched Lord of the Rings, or whatever it might be, that they're ready to move to New Zealand. And the reality is, mentally, you're ready. You want to move, but you're not ready. To be ready, you've got to be information ready, which means all the information you need about your move, not somebody else's move. Document ready, which is so important, having the paperwork you're going to need to get visas in place, ideally before you start talking to employers, because the third thing you need to be is able to prove to any potential employer that everything's going to run quickly and smoothly should they offer you a job, because an employer needs a clear way forward, just like you need a clear way forward. And the reality is, if you try and do that on your own, if you try and do those 3 things on your own, you can't. You've got the internet. The internet isn't about you and your move. It's just pages of information. And it's totally reliant on you finding the right page at the right time with the right information. And the chances of that happening are virtually nil. And all you do, if you use the internet, and sure, a lot of you watching this webinar tonight will be nodding your head and agreeing, is it sends you round and round in circles. You get to a certain point and then you get stuck. Okay, same with getting document ready. Nazim knows this more than anyone on this call. Getting documents, it's not just like, well, here's my birth certificate and here's my CV, etc. You might be able to find what documents are required on the internet, but what the internet isn't going to tell you is what format do they need to be in? How many do you need? What is acceptable? What isn't acceptable under current immigration criteria? You're not going to find that stuff on the internet. And you could tell an employer that you're fully prepared and ready to move. That doesn't mean anything to the employer. That just means you're keen. There is no proof. If you're telling them, hey, I'm fully prepared, ready to move, my documents are in place, you're still asking that employer to put a lot of faith in you knowing what you're doing. And most employers will not do that. They want peace of mind. I think one of the things you told me, Nazim, was some of the employers that we were helping with their accreditation, one of their main pieces of feedback was that if they were going through all this hassle to get accredited, they weren't going to offer jobs to people who are doing their own visas, because they want the peace of mind that the right person is going to get there and get there in time, and this is so important. So getting ready for the move is super important. Getting the job offer, we call this bit employment support. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it is quite detailed in what we do, but there's basically 4 key areas where the jobs are sitting in New Zealand. And it doesn't matter what your occupation is for these roles, whether it's engineer, a teacher, whatever. They're either advertised online, job sites. They are in the hidden job market, which means they're word of mouth, the jobs that aren't on the internet. And New Zealand has a lot of those. It's a smaller population. Everybody knows everybody. You want to talk to people in your industry. That's how you get a job in your industry. So they're hidden. You can't see them on the internet. There's recruitment agents in New Zealand, just like any other country. They might have roles that are available. And there's the, do you take a trip to New Zealand to get a job offer? Now, they're the 4 key areas where jobs can be found. We've got strategies and information to support and guide you to interact in all 4 of those areas. So an example of that was, again, something that myself and Nazim were talking about. Now that the borders are open, we're seeing more and more people putting themselves on the ground in New Zealand. Okay, so literally going to New Zealand to try and get a job offer. You've got to be careful around this though, haven't you, Nazim? I mean, certain countries you can't just fly to New Zealand. You need to apply for a visitor visa, and you've got to watch it at the border as well sometimes. And you've got to have a return flight. You can't fly one way to look for a job. So there is certain criteria, isn't there, Nazim, that you've got to be wary of.
Yeah, absolutely. Like with all immigration policies in New Zealand and most Western countries, the government looks at what your intention is. So if your intention is to come for a holiday, well, then you come for a holiday, and there's nothing stopping you from applying for a visitor visa or an ETA, NZETA, whatever it might be. But maybe don't come with like 18 suitcases,
Your dog.
everything you've ever owned, the dog, the kitchen sink, that kind of stuff.
I'm here for a holiday, yeah.
Yeah, so if you come for a holiday and actually come for a holiday, and yes, absolutely go and talk to people, and if you've secured some interviews, do those as well. It's not illegal to come to New Zealand to go to an interview.
No, exactly.
Or,
Yeah, we've done seminars, haven't we, with the immigration service or all around the world, where we've had the immigration service stand there and say, look, go and visit New Zealand. Try and talk to some employers, but better than that, where we can assist with this side of things is when we're helping people. If our clients say, oh, we're planning on coming to New Zealand as a research trip, holiday / hopefully get an interview while we're there, then what we say to them is great. Reach out to all the employers who have ignored you, all the employers who've said no because we've helped them do this, all the recruitment agents they might have come across, all the employers on their wish list of who they want to apply for, and say to them, I'm going to be on the ground in New Zealand from this date to this date. Would you like to meet me? And we can follow up on these and advocate on their behalf and clarify questions and stuff. This isn't stuff you can do on your own. This is stuff that you do when you have people like us supporting you. And this is why we call it support. This isn't us going out and getting you a job offer. This is us supporting you through the process. But without that support, you're just a CV. And if you're just a CV, your chances of doing this are greatly diminished, and you're probably wasting your time. So that's step 2, getting the visa. We've already touched on that. We've got a massive team of licensed advisor, massive depth of knowledge. We don't need to go into detail on how visas work. That's why you use visa agents, and that's our advice on that. And then there's the other side of it, relocation. We do assist and guide with everything from renting property to buying property to opening bank accounts, paying tax, shipping your goods, booking your flights, whatever you can think of, it's there. So this is a full end-to-end service. This isn't just filling out forms. This is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And we work with people for a long time through this process. It takes as long as it takes, and it basically takes as long as it takes you to get a job offer, which is the bit that's unknown. Some people do it quickly, some people take time. So I hope that's touched on how to think about the move and break it down into steps, because if you don't, you'll just spin round and round in circles. And so, Monique, I'm going to pass back to you now to, for anyone who's here watching this webinar tonight, and we have done it slightly different tonight. We've made it a bit more interactive and hopefully a bit more useful for people. But what's the very, very simple thing that they can do? What's the first step in the process with us for anyone on here who is thinking, I want to go to New Zealand and I want to talk to these guys? What's the first step?
Well, the very first step really is finding out if you're going to be eligible. So we will ask you to fill out this free appraisal form. We collect just some very basic information from you, like age and occupation and what education you've had, if you've got children, yes or no, any character issues or health conditions. So just a very simple form. Now, I have a colleague in South Africa, and then myself, so Sarah and myself will then, if you, on the face of it, we think you are a candidate that we could work with, we will invite you to a quick 15-minute consultation or appraisal call, we call it, with one of us. During that call, we're genuinely interested in you. So it's maybe my turn to actually stop talking so much and say, okay, what is your story? Why do you want to move to New Zealand? And we talk about that, and we will explain to you what we can do to help get you here, what hurdles you need to overcome, and how and what the best pathway is going to be for you to come to New Zealand. And that's really what it is, just a quick 50-minute chat. And from then we will most likely send you a link to a My Visa Path, which is something that Paul will talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
And that will definitely give you some more clarity, because clarity is what you really need at this point. We want to make sure, that no stone is left unturned so that you can make this really important decision, because it is a massive decision moving to New Zealand.
Absolutely.
One that's going to be very worthwhile, though.
Yeah, and Monique's, Monique, just for everyone listening, Monique's brilliant at this clarity session. That's exactly what it's about, and this is completely free. This appraisal form, and if the appraisal form looks good, and you look like somebody that we can help, then you'll get a call with Monique or Sarah, and they'll give you that clarity of where things go from there. This doesn't cost you, and there's no risk in this at all, and the whole point of this is to minimize your risks and try and show you a way forward. Now, Monique, there's obviously we do, as well as this, we do events and we do the webinars, but we do events all over the world now that the world's finally open and New Zealand's caught up and opened a year after everybody else did. We're all off back traveling again, so we've got a few events coming up. I don't know if this is relevant to anyone who's watching on the webinar tonight, but if you're in Europe, and if you're in the UK and Singapore as well, so we're hitting a few places at the moment. So can you just tell us a little bit about what's going on at these events, Monique?
So the first one up is actually Singapore. It's actually back to front, but Singapore is the first one. That's just our lovely international healthcare recruitment manager, Jo. She will be traveling to Singapore. That's on the back of a very successful trip she had last year to Singapore. She'll be meeting with nurses there on the 28th and the 29th of March. So that's not too far away. That's next month. So that will be a great one. And then joining Jo and Paul and myself, we will be going to the Netherlands, a place called Houten. I know it's about half an hour away from Amsterdam. So for people, it's not just for the Dutch. It's New Zealand's largest immigration expo. We expect about 11,000 people to walk through the doors there. We're expecting people from the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, but even the UK. Hey, shout yourself a trip to Amsterdam.
I'm going.
A weekend Amsterdam, and just hop on a train, 30-minute train ride to Utrecht or Houten, and come speak to us. We'll be there. And then on the back of that, I think a couple of weeks later, on the 16th of April, Jo will be joining Paul, and I believe Paul Arthur as well, and that will be for healthcare professionals in Manchester. Is it in Manchester?
Yeah, it's in Manchester.
It is Manchester, yeah.
It's very
Sorry, I
much
haven't got my glasses on. Yeah, it's Manchester.
Yeah, very much focused on the UK at the moment with that, because obviously I don't know if there's any UK health professionals on this webinar tonight, or we'll see it afterwards, but we know that, there's a lot of issues that the health professionals are facing in the NHS at the moment in the UK. New Zealand's had some we've moved a lot of health professionals to New Zealand. They were already on generally slightly more salary in New Zealand, and a slightly better, well, not slightly better, a better work-life balance. But also New Zealand nurses, I believe, were just awarded a 14% pay rise, which I think any nurses in the UK will be like, what? It's like, that's crazy. And like I say, they were already on slightly more money anyway. So if you're a health professional and you want to look at that better work-life balance, then we'd love to see you in Manchester or Singapore, obviously, and in the Netherlands. So some opportunities there for people to actually meet us face to face. We're all going to be hitting the road, which is great, and rather than just being on webinars. So before we wrap up, because we have gone on quite long today, but hopefully
just one thing, Paul.
Yeah, go on, Monique. Yeah, no,
about the Netherlands one, I think if you watch our Facebook page, there will be 50 free tickets to give away to the Dutch Expo.
Yeah.
And you could also pre-book a time to meet with you. Yeah. With you, Paul.
Yes.
So there is that opportunity as well.
There is that
so
opportunity.
Let us know if you're interested in that.
Yeah, and we are going to be giving away a free visa assistance service to somebody at the event as well. So definitely worth you coming along if you can. So before we do wrap up today, I just wanted to touch on one last thing, which is very important, and this is what we call my visa path. So once you've filled out the free appraisal form, and we've screened that, and then you've gone through a clarity session with Monique or Sarah, and that all looks good, then the next option is to have what we call my visa path. Now, my visa path is probably one of the most important things, I think, in my opinion, that we do, you know, because this is, again, before you've even fully committed to making the move. You're not signing contracts with us at this stage or anything else. This is a full assessment. So how we do this is you will be invited to give us all of the information we need, everything about you and your family, your CVs and what you're doing, and any hurdles that you think you've got or anything else. You do all this online on a form, and that goes past our visa team, who you've already seen on one of our earlier slides. And one of our licensed advisors from the visa team will basically take your information, match it all up with current immigration policy, and generate a report. That report will touch on all of your visa options, from temporary to residence to green list to skilled migrant category, etc. Also sort of highlight what we think is the best route forward as well on that. And then all that information actually comes over to me as well. And what we do, or what I do, is I organise a Zoom call with you. It's usually around 45 minutes to an hour. And prior to that call, you can make a list of any questions that you want answering about anything about moving to and living in New Zealand. And what I do in that call is I basically use the report from the visa team as a blueprint to map out your journey to New Zealand. So I listen to you, and I listen to what you're trying to do, and then I look at the report and see what it actually allows you to do. And then I match the two things together. And the aim is, at the end of that call, you've got all the answers to all your questions, and you've got a clear way forward that's easy to understand, because then you're in a position to make decisions. That should be the ultimate goal for everybody who's on this webinar tonight. You know, if you want to move to New Zealand, get to that point of having a My Visa Path full assessment. Of course, there's a fee for that part of our service, because it's a lot of work involving a lot of people, and it's really important that it's done properly. This is, as I said, this isn't just saying that you're eligible. This is giving you a way forward and the opportunity to have people help you move forward as well, which is really important. The fee that we charge for that is 299 New Zealand dollars. Slightly different, I think, in the South African market, but for everyone else, it's 299 New Zealand dollars for the full assessment. That includes the report, and it includes 45-minute to 1 hour consultation and follow up with myself. Best thing you can do if you want to move to New Zealand and get access to a whole bunch of people who can help you do it, and also access to the people that we've already helped do it, because that's one of the other things that we do with our clients. We actually put all of our clients in touch with each other, which is pretty cool as well. So hopefully that's helped everyone. I want to thank you all for taking part in this for 40 minutes, and hardly anyone's dropped off, which is great. We have gone on a bit longer than usual. As we sort of wrap up for today, I think in the chat room I can see that we have shared the link for the free appraisal, so you should all have that. If you haven't, then just click on it and open up that page whilst you're here. We'll also send you through the link to the free appraisal as well. But just as we're saying goodbye, and as I'm talking to Nazim and Monique and saying goodbye, I'll just show you some new slides that we've had put together. We do this at the end, you know, a bit of that New Zealand lifestyle. I haven't even seen these pictures myself yet, so I'm actually looking at these. But whilst we're doing that, Nazim, you know, what's your one piece of advice for people, you know, on this webinar tonight?
I highly recommend that you do, you know, if you start this journey and that you do get that full report and consultation with Paul. It's really important to find out what you can and can't actually do. You know, I saw that Claire asked a question, you know, can I join the conversation, or will it just be my husband? You know, when we're looking at when we're looking at someone's move to New Zealand, we have to look at, you know, the family unit. We need to take all of that into consideration. And so then we'll be able to say, yes, we can see, for example, that you're driving this process and it's great that you're so excited, but your partner's going to be the better principal applicant because of age or occupation or some other thing that you've mentioned as part of that process of our assessment. So absolutely do that, because if you don't do that, you can't even start your plan because you don't even know what you can and you can't do. So you do need to do that to be able to start those 4 steps.
Absolutely.
So that's the one thing that I always recommend.
Great
So
point.
same way you wouldn't build a house without consulting with an architect and a builder, you've got to do the same thing if you're moving to another country.
Exactly. You wouldn't run a business without a business plan. So why would you move to another country without a plan on how to do it? It makes no sense, and it's too risky. We're here to minimize people's risks, and maximize their opportunities. So Monique, same question to you, just as we wrap up. Final question. What's your one?
By the way, that
piece...
was my husband with the kingfish just now.
Was it?
That was my husband with the kingfish.
Let's get him back on
the back of our boat.
So
yeah, don't be too afraid to put in some hard work yourselves. We can do a lot, but it's ultimately up to you. And please be patient. It doesn't happen overnight. Especially if you have got an occupation that's maybe a little bit niche, or it may take a little bit longer to find that perfect job for you. Just be patient. And as Paul and Naseem did say, not every employer has got the accreditation done yet in New Zealand, but we are working with employers ourselves. So yeah, and your patience and your hard work will be really rewarded. I can tell you that. New Zealand is still, in my humble opinion, one of the best countries to live in.
Oh,
thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, guys. Thank you, Naseem. Thank you, Monique. It's very, very early for those guys over in New Zealand. Unfortunately, I'm currently in the UK. I hope that has been very, very useful for everybody on here. I hope you like the new, more interactive, informal kind of format that we're trying to go for here. We're just trying to liven things up and throw different things in rather than just repeating the same thing all the time. So, you can check back in. We do these webinars once a month. My advice to you would be, if you're serious, don't bother checking back in. Just do the appraisal and get the My Visa Path done. That's the way forward. You can watch as many.
Come and have a chat with me.
Watch as many webinars as you want. They don't. Whilst this is very useful, you've got to do something to make this happen. Okay, so come and see us in Utrecht, isn't it? Not Utrecht, as I keep calling it, Utrecht. Come and see us near Amsterdam. Come and see us in Manchester. Come and see us in Singapore. Fill out the free appraisal form. Get your My Visa Path done, and we'd love to be talking to you in the coming days and weeks. So, cheers, guys. We're going to call it a day, and thank you all for taking part.
Bye.
Bye.